So now let's welcome our president, Connie Dice, to bring us a brief introduction of NECINA. Hello, Connie.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
I really appreciate everybody, take the time. I mean, it could be your TV time and time with your children or time with your partner, and you sacrifice that time and join NECINA for our bootcamp. Thank you so much. So just a quick summary about NECINA. NECINA has 24 years of history. This year going to be the 25th anniversary. And it is a professional premium networking organization. We have about 4,500 newsletter subscribers and members. And each year we have approximately 30 volunteer officers servicing all the NECINA events. And each year we have in between 25 to 30 events, and attendees is usually between 25, 30 to 150. We are actually here our mission is to connect, create, and grow. So we connect and empowers professionals of all age and all disciplines in New England and beyond, thanks to COVID-19, actually. That's the benefit that we get from COVID-19. And this year, all the programs going to switch from in-person program to online program, which actually gives us a great opportunity to go outside of New England. So we have three big areas of the programs. One is we embrace new technology and the latest innovations. So we organize technology conferences and NECINA lab learning skill seminars. Second, we're actually facilitating entrepreneurship through our youth entrepreneurship program, which has been 15th year of anniversary this year, sponsored by IBM and the Thermo Fisher. And we also going to have an innovation challenge competition this year. And we will take great advantage of let all the participants using NECINA's great resources of assigning mentors and reviewers and the judges to help you conceptualize an idea and help you convert that idea into something much more feasible, a feasible solution or prototype. And we also have an entrepreneurship club, which is a club and network of established businesses. They come together and have regular meetings and to resolve the issues and the problem and challenges they face as established business owners. Last but not least, our most important program is career and professional development. Each year, we're going to have a career conference, which this year is going to be the 7th year. And in addition to career conference, we have career boot camps and skill seminars. And this year, each month, we're going to have a career boot camp seminar. In November, we will have a women's conference. So everybody stay tuned. And I hope you can join us for all the programs. We also serve as a platform for all our members, volunteer officers, our partners, our sponsors to network and to build a long, sustainable professional and personal relationship. I just want you to know that we're actually doing a free membership promotion until the end of this year. So in the end of the presentation, Forrest will show you how to get on the membership with NECINA. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the podium to Forrest.
Thank you, Connie. Now we are going to have our key speaker, Mr. Sun tonight, currently Vice President of Finance in Tufts Health Plan. Mr. Sun has 2 decades of experience in corporate finance, serving companies across healthcare, consumers products and service, as well as Internet O2O sectors in China and US. Today, we are expecting him to share us some experience of how he got through the crisis before and what inspirations he will bring to us. Let's welcome Mr. Sun.
All right. First of all, happy holidays, and thank you all for coming to this session. And a special thanks to the ladies at the NECINA for this opportunity. Give me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts about how to evolve a career. As you have heard, so I had quite some years of experience in corporate finance and lived in many cities and served quite a few companies. So I know something about managing change, managing the change in your environment, develop relationship with new colleagues, and how to adapt yourself into different culture environment. So, at the end of the information, feel free to ask questions about my experience and ask questions about any specific situation that you might want my thoughts on. And, I think the reason I call it a career evolution, when I look back, I don't think I've managed any sort of revolutionary changes in my career. I was somewhat lucky enough just to keep adding the pieces into my career path to evolve it to something I really enjoyed. There are obviously ups and downs and difficulties that you have to overcome. But I think it is something that is hopefully relevant to a lot of the audience here as you're in the early stage of career or your mid-career, and then you may take certain pieces from my experience to help you out. If there's anything that you can take away from today's sessions, I think I'll be grateful for that. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So I guess I'd like to welcome everyone with this quote from Phil Knight. And if you have read the book, if you knew about the book, most of the people take this quote as referring to entrepreneurs. Their journey of starting up companies and how they overcome different obstacles. However, I just like to use this to refer to anyone who takes on somewhat adventurous journeys in their life. I think that includes all of you and all of us. And we all adventured into unfamiliar culture thousands of miles away from our comfort zone. And especially in this age of somewhat anti-globalization sentiment, I think it does take a lot of courage and the perseverance to commit to a career in an international setting. So I think, I'd like to call you all the Braves, and I'm happy and glad to be one of you, and welcome to the party. So hopefully, we're gonna have a fun session tonight. All right, so let me share something about me. I'd like to separate my career into 4 phases. As you can see on this timeline, the first phase is quite usual as everyone. You get some education. You're an analyst or associate in certain institutions. And then you get into your mid-career part, which is really you need to spend time thinking about how do you manage your career into something you really want. It doesn't come naturally, so I'll call it somewhat a transitional phase in my career. And the third phase, I'll call it all-in. Reason I said that is that you finally get your career onto something you really liked. So there's really no reason to hold back. You kind of need to put yourself all in. That is not to say you have to put your career at the very top of your life. You still need to balance other things. But however, this is the one period I do think you need to give a lot of thoughts and put in a lot of effort into your career and maximize your experience in this phase. And now, there's a present phase. I came back to the United States of America. I'm currently the vice president of Tufts Health Plan. I'll comment on this phase of my life a little later in the slides. So next, please. So this is more important about me than any of the stuff I just talked about. So I'm not a very religious person. So this club is just about as close to something to a religion as it gets. So, talking about, some people asking about networking or ice breaking tips. Know who you are talking to probably is very important. I remember I talked to one of my clients about cars because I noticed a picture in his office, a beautiful Porsche 911. So I figure he's a car enthusiastic, right? If you have certain decoration in office and things you notice, that's going to help you break ice. So that's a little tip from me, but also to help you know me a little better. And obviously, most important thing in my life is my family. And I'm happily married for over 20 years. We have two teenage boys living with us. That's quite quite a handful. But throughout my career, you will see, I think sticking to certain values is quite important. Everybody need a North Star in their life. I think mine is really my family, and I think that's the most important aspect of my life, and it has driven a lot of my decisions along the ways. So now let's get to the early career part. I think when I put these bullet points onto the slide, I thought back as I started fresh out of college. I asked myself the question that, was I smart enough to sort of synthesize it? That was my plan of developing a fantastic career. Probably not. This is how, when I look back, I think those are the important elements that happened in the early part of my career that really helped me out. I think I'm not kind of, person, or when I was young, that I know that, oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to be certain type. I think I'm a quite typical Asian kid, right? Just taking parents' advice and say, you know what, study well, your life will be okay. All right, you know what, and let me just attacking my academic life with some intensity and passion. And honestly, I don't know how to maximize my experience, or what to do next. Put things in context. In the early 90s, most of the college students had no exposure to the outside world. That's the pre-internet age. So most of us don't know about MBA programs and don't know about the career paths in banking, in consulting. A lot of things were just starting up over there. However, I think not by looking back, I think I'm really happy that I focused on the basics in terms of the skill development. The language, let it be language, math, computer skills, or just read extensively about any literature you can get your hands on relevant to your industry. I joined Anderson Consulting fresh out of college and got thrown into SAP implementation, financial modules. So there's a lot of self-studying about accounting, about computer system integration, and things of that kind of nature. So your education foundation, really help you in terms of expanding your learning capacity, and how do you learn new concepts and develop new skills in an efficient and timely manner that will help you out in the early part of your career. So that's why my advice for the early career person here is really you need to focus on the basics and become a lifetime learner, if you will, and that's really helpful. And then my advice for network development is that really just don't ignore the network you already have. When I look back my career, I got quite some help. And most of the time, it was from my former boss. So it is important to do a solid job and develop a reputation. And usually, people would love to extend you a helping hand when you need certain advice, when you're looking for certain opportunities, or when get introduced to certain opportunities. To have a reputation for among the people that know you, I think that is really important. And also just make it fun. Network development that doesn't necessarily need to be all professional related. It could be sports, any outdoor activities. Do something fun and take some time off, and while developing some meaningful social relationship. And also, spending some time just thinking about a set of core values. What's the most important thing to you? Let it be, your family, or how to act as a fiduciary, and how you take friendship in your life. And like Google says, do no evil. Probably in my current stage, working for a non-for-profit healthcare, just set up the value of saying, hey, in my life, I want to do some good, is quite helpful. And the last point I want to say is that, really escape complacency. This is one area I think in the early part of my career I probably didn't realize, and it's a lesson I learned later on. I think that was probably the shortcoming of getting educated in a very structured environment, just focusing on very contextual things rather than dreaming big, right? I think you guys all heard the word of staying hungry and staying foolish nowadays. And in this day and age of information explosion, you will get exposure to a lot of things. I think my generation didn't get that, and therefore, that was kind of a regret in my life. However, I do think my generation has some kind of advantage as well, which is simplicity in life, that you don't get distracted as much, that allow you to stay focused on the basics and stay focused on the important things. So I just want to share this with folks, earlier in their career. And if you don't know what to do, fine, just do it. Just focus on the basic things and do the right things, and it will naturally come. It may not come within a year or two, but as long as you start to think about your life and articulate that a core set of values and about the things that you want to do, sooner or later it's going to come. Just be patient. Next slide, please. So I think my career transition, somewhat got, I wouldn't say interrupted or sped up a little bit, really by the set of crisis that we experienced in the early part of my life. And I think just to put things in context, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of graduating students and looking into the employee market. It is quite a scary situation. I think I could sympathize with people who's in the market looking for a job right now. However, the one thing I'd like to say is just, if you put things in perspective, you look at the first 20 years of last century, the 20th century literally started with an assassination of a US president. And 1914, there's the World War I that's supposed to end all wars. We all know how that turned out. And there was a revolution in Russia and China. And not to be overdone by the current COVID-19 nowadays, in 1918, there was a Spanish flu that killed far more people, and mostly in their 20s and 40s. So, the reason I want to just take us back 100 years is just to look at things from a longer time horizon. I think we're progressively better. So it's important to have some sense of optimism and keep that hope alive. I think we are actually doing better, and we'll continue to do better. These crises are just an aberration, in terms of the long history of sort of prosperity that we experienced in the past 30, 40 years. And it will all sort of blow over. But the key question is, how do we handle the crises? As I look back, so the 1997 Asia financial crisis, I was a consultant with Anderson Consulting. So I literally learned about exchange rate and how to hedge risk on the spot. Because there's a colleague from Indonesia on my team. Just like me, he was thinking about going to US to pursue a master's degree. So we're all saving up for our tuition. And in the summer of '97, I think the Indonesian currency literally lost 70 to 80% of its value in a matter of days. Just imagine, right? You feel like you've saved up all your money for that tuition, then all of a sudden you're 80% short. So this is a lesson, I guess, I learned during very dear and near to my life. So I think we're lucky that we're living in United States of America and China. Both are very sizable countries, has literally quite stable exchange rate. But these financial risks can actually disrupt people's life in a very drastic way. So, for me, later on a financial professional, to learn that is very important, and get a perspective on risk management is important to me. And in 2011, the 9/11 literally stopped the US economy in the track. And I got laid off by Booz Allen and Hamilton. And that literally kind of get me to start thinking about, what I really want to do about myself. Instead of just, I know that I was pretty smart. I graduated from a quite good MBA program. But what do I really want to do in my life? Quite honestly, for a consultant graduating from, for someone graduating from business school and got into consulting industry, there are two groups, right? One destined for the partner track, and then the other group simply don't know what they want to do in their life, and so they want to park their life in the consultancy for a while. So I'm the second group, and so it just forced me to really think about what are my advantages and what are my passions. What do I want to do was my life. And I think take some time off to think about, yourself as a person is quite important. Quite honestly, I knew that I wasn't cut out to be a salesperson. I didn't have that personality. I didn't enjoy that experience. You know, I'm a quite an introvert and somewhat nerdy. So honestly, you know, to stay on the consultancy track may not get me very far, because once you become a partner, the natural transition is to become a rainmaker in that particular profession. I do like numbers, and I wasn't an accountant by training, but one thing I learned is that in business school that I was so sound technically from an accounting perspective, I actually could earn better grades than CPAs in accounting classes. So that tells me something, right? I think that's something that means I have a talent for. The question is, you know, whether do I want to go back to be an accountant? Probably not. I do have an interest in the capital markets. I do have an interest in sort of getting the organization to be more efficient, both operationally and financially. I think, you know, once I think through these pieces, it's sort of shaped my thinking about my career, is that, you know what, I want to get myself into corporate finance. I think it could leverage the different pieces of my strengths and avoid some of my weakness. And also, it's something I enjoyed doing. I always enjoyed handling Excel models, you know, for my consulting teams and the various projects. So, you know, this is kind of when I went through the dot-com bubble and the 9/11 crisis, is really to kind of get me onto a path to transition into corporate finance. And in 2008, you know, the financial crisis started from the U.S. I was lucky enough that I was, you know, thousands of miles away in China, working on the Olympic project. So, you know, I think sometimes it's quite interesting if you're securing your job and you're going through your routine, that's as if, you know, the financial crisis just doesn't exist. I feel that, you know, lucky enough during that phase of my life. So, you know, for those on the phone in the meeting who still have a job, and congratulations. And I think, you know, I hope you all live through this pandemic era stronger and the better. And now with this COVID-19, as I said, you know, I'm working for Tufts Health Plan right now. So the one interesting part of my work is to help out. You know, how do we help struggling hospitals that waiting for the COVID patients, and yet all the other patients stop coming, right? Because they worry about contracting COVID. So we are actually literally providing some cash advances to certain clinics and hospitals. And we're waiving certain co-pays. There's a lot of policy making and detailed work behind the scenes as an insurance company to help our customer and our other stakeholders like providers experiencing through this pandemic period. So just glad, you know, during this phase of my life, I could be of some help during a crisis. Next slide, please. Actually, I'm sorry, roll back. There was one question about, you know, about immigration status. I think I'd like to comment on that. So there are actually several options that you can think about. Believe it or not, and back in '97, when I applying for U.S. Business School, I also filed application to immigrate to Canada for personal reasons. So if you want to kind of stay in certain environment, I think you're in control. You can always look for certain immigration programs and certain things that you can do, and just deal with the visa situation in the U.S. Canada is close enough, although pandemic make it a bit harder, but you certainly can make plans for that. And the other option is back to school. Just pick a subject of your interest and that's helpful to your career, and then you can stay on student visa for a few more years, right? And the crisis is usually not gonna last more than 2 years, and by the time you graduate, the economy will recover and you'll be ready to get into a much improved job market. And number 3, that's a kind of famous saying from the Korean War about advance to the rear. I think it's the U.S. Marine First Division, and the generals say, "I never retreat. I only advance to the rear." It's a nice way of calling retreat. But sometimes it's really not necessarily a retreat. What I remember back in 2001, many of my Chinese fellow students or friends graduating from MBA program and couldn't get good jobs in the US. So they pack up and they went back to either China or Hong Kong. I actually did a bit comparison of that particular group versus the group that stayed in the US throughout. I probably would say the group that's back in China right now had enjoyed greater career success up to this point. So therefore, I think the Asian economy nowadays is quite different from 20 years ago. It's much more developed, it's much stronger. It actually offers a lot of opportunity as well. So the one thing that, if you are interested in a professional career in, let's say, law, finance, banking, even consulting, place like Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai may not be a bad option, right? That is to say, if you can line yourself up to join a good firm, a reputable firm, then it's really not a bad option at all. So, just some ideas for you guys to consider. Okay. Next slide, please. So, as I was going through my career transition, some change are forced. Some change are by design. But for those changes that's by design, I guess you need to know when you want to make a change. These are the 4 things I measure myself and to say whether I need to make a career change or not. At times that you need to understand where the organization is going. I left Cigna in early, I guess, 2004 and 2006 to join Aramark at the time was because the organization was embarking on a sort of a decentralized model of management in its international business. And I wasn't ready to go back to Asia at the time. So the value of staying corporate headquarters significantly diminished. So if your career goals are somewhat not aligned with the organization's goal, then it's really time for you to think about getting out. I think the one thing to think about in the transitional career is really not to think too much about financial award. It's really thinking about whether you're adding the pieces to your career that help you eventually achieve, achieve your goals. And the other thing you need to think about is whether your value system is still consistent with the value of that organization. Lucky enough, I think in my career, I don't need to make change, and because of that. But I do think it's an important aspect you need to think about. I have a staff on my team quit and joined a startup that does cannabis business. I think you should ask yourself that whether that's a business that you feel comfortable with or not. I don't want to morally judge that, but it is something that you're going to live kind of for a long time. Live with it for a long time, and also you also need to think about the stigma of when you move into the next organization, and how does it show up on your resume. So I think doing something that's really consistent with your value is important. The third thing is that when you feel like you're getting too comfortable, it's probably time to move. And the fourth thing is that when you are offered an opportunity that you simply feel like you cannot refuse, and then I think it when it knock on your door, and then it is really time for you to make a change. I think of all the criteria I'm talking about here, probably the most difficult for people to make that decision is number 3. Getting too comfortable, right? So, if you think about your daily routine, it's just getting a bit boring and very sort of comfortable, that you only use 30% of your effort, and you can finish a day's of work, and you have a lot of time on your hand, then that's really some time, especially for people in the early and mid part of their career, to think about getting some growth. I think that's a very important aspect that I do think I'd advise people to take it seriously. Okay. So how to get closer to your goals, through a series of changes. I think number one, that you need to kind of set clear career goals. As I was talking about when I kind of evaluating my own weakness and strengths and try to put different pieces together, that I feel like, okay, a corporate finance career is the right thing for me. And also, quite frankly, I was quite fond of international business, and also understanding sort of really to play my cultural background, that strengths, that somewhere I'd like to go back to Asia or China, to further develop my career, right? So once I have, that kind of very clear goal or mindset set up, then it's just about how you gradually adding pieces to achieve your goal, right? So you need to kind of put these elements on your resume. It's not going to happen overnight, and also don't be too greedy in terms of saying, hey, the next thing I'm going to look for is a finance director for a multinational company based out of Hong Kong. If you narrowly defined it, and then there might not be as many opportunities. So how you sort of gradually evolve yourself towards that is quite important. When I joined NECINA, so first is to develop a good reputation. And then I start to network with the folks in the international division and develop some contacts, and also let my career interests be known, right? So through some kind of productive networking, and also had a pretty good track record amongst my different sort of supervisors and bosses during that time. I was managed to get promoted into a director of finance role within the NECINA International Division. So that was my stepping stone, right? And my next dream job was that if I develop myself sort of advanced enough, is to become a country CFO, or for that organization. Unfortunately, as I said, that was a period of time then the organization went a different direction. I saw that path close in front of me. Then I had to make a change. So I went to Aramark. I literally followed a boss of mine, dotted line boss. He moved over to be the CIO of Aramark International. So they need a finance director, kind of be a finance liaison with their Asia Pacific businesses. Perfect opportunity. So I jumped ship over there. Next thing you know, they won the bid for the Olympic project and run into some issues on the ground, and they want a full-time finance person there to lead that effort. So it's a thankless job. It sounds very good, but no American want to take it. So I was stupid enough to volunteer for it. So I got sent back to Beijing and be the finance director for that project. And little do I know, that actually is a very important piece of puzzle in my career. Because when I was interviewing for my next opportunities, I knew my boss pretty well by then, and we chatted. What he told me was like, what, if you haven't been a finance director responsible for a book within China or within the geographic region, I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing you in, as the CFO of Converse China. So that's why I say, it's literally building a resume is like a puzzle, and you just need to find the opportunity to put the right piece into the right place, and also be patient when you sort of get the picture all together, right? So, so there will be twists and turns, but you just need to kind of be focused and stay on the course. And even some failures, as long as you're on the right path, it's going to get you closer to that role. Last point is that, you really need to understand the value of helping others. I think in my career, what I learned is that, help others is just as important as help yourself. And it's always important to have a corporate sponsor. And your reputation will follow you for a long, long time. And this is this is quite, the community itself is smaller than you think. As I went through careers, and then I realized, you can name a circle of CFOs that bought sort of Chinese tech companies IPO, and a lot of people kind of knew each other. So really, your kind of strengths and weakness, and people sooner or later will all find out, and therefore develop a track record is extremely important in your career building. So about international business, I think you have to be adaptive and flexible, both culturally and living environment. You know, for people say, hey, you know, I only eat salad, probably going back to Asia is not a good choice. And it takes certain character to sort of travel the world to be an international businessman. And so you need to sort of respect the difference and be culturally sensitive. And solve information asymmetry, I think people probably don't understand that. Let me expand a little bit. I think the one thing is that you're by yourself representing the company in the foreign land, and you will know a lot of things that your folks back in headquarters that had no idea about, right? So this is what I call information asymmetry. So how do you use that to your advantage in the ethical way, right? There are many ways of using it unethically. But if you use it in a very ethical way, it can help you get things done. You can sort of, you know, educate your corporate folks about the nuances on the ground, and you become the go-to person, right? But in the process of doing so, you need to be very careful about your credibility. And therefore, you know, I use the word solve, right? It doesn't mean that, you know, you have to be sort of the corporate representative, then everything has to be by the book per corporate headquarters demand. I don't think that will get you very far in a location that is regulated by different set of laws and different set of regulations, right? However, on the other hand, you cannot just say, you know what, let's blindside the folks in the headquarters and we could do things our own way. That's also, you know, kind of is going to sow some trouble for you down the road. And therefore, I think, you know, that's really for an international businessman, you need to be able to strike that balance of solving this information asymmetry issue. So maintain credibility on both ends in the ethical way. I think that's quite important. You know, at the same time, you know, as long as you manage the expectations and do a solid job and explain to people why things are different on the ground and explain to help your local folks understand, you know, what's the demand of a multinational company, you will do well. And, you know, the other thing is just enjoy. I think when you work in a foreign country and foreign city, and there are cultural things, there are natural sceneries for you to enjoy. So just don't forget about, you know, taking advantage of the opportunity that offers you, right? Travel a little bit and get to know some new friends. It's going to be a fun experience. The last piece of advice is just don't get lost, right? You need to keep an eye on your next stop. So once you land yourself in Asia, you tell yourself, hey, am I going to be in here for the long haul or for the rest of my life? Or do I actually want to move back to US someday? So how do you make their connection back to the home office and into the various places that you want to go? I think that's quite important. I think when I sort of developed the opportunity to work for Converse is because, you know, as I was on the Olympic project, I started to network with some headhunters to really expand my network. I think that's, you know, how you lend yourself the next opportunity.
Sorry for interrupting, but
yep.
we don't have a lot of time, so
sure.
probably keep the pace faster. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So talking about importance of choice. So when you make certain choice and make sure you do your homework, and get fully informed what you are getting into. I think and consult the experts, and hopefully someone with an inside track. So sometimes people will claim that they know certain business environment, but that may not necessarily true. So look into your LinkedIn network and really find the one that's close to the situation for you to make certain decisions. And the most important thing actually is just understand yourself. Are you ready for your next stage of the career, and does this thing align with your value and goals? What's the impact on your family? Are you willing to make these kind of compromises? So I think as long as you think things through, it's always good to have opportunities presented to yourself. When you sit back and thinking about a choice, it could be agonizing, but trust me, it's much better than not having any choices. So the next slides, you guys probably heard about the movie that was a blockbuster after COVID-19 back in China. Little do people know, 3 years ago, there was another movie, right? About just almost exactly the same war, the same heroes in the battle probably is more important than the battle depicted in the 2020 movie. It's a lower budget movie, but just look at the outcome of the box office, right? One movie made $12 million. RMB actually. The other movie now I think just broke 3 billion RMB. So what made the difference? When I look at these two situations, I think when you look at the substance, while the story, the movie making are all similar, but one is made by unknown people, the other is made by celebrities. One producer is independent, the other producer is the Huayi brothers. And then you probably start to piece together, why they are so different. One is the substance might be different. The other is the Huayi brothers certainly has much more powerful marketing power and the connection to the theater groups to allow the movie to be shown on more screens, right? I think when I look at the reviews, a lot of people say the Defenders is just there's nowhere to see that movie, even though they're interested in it, right? So think about it. Sometimes people get to a certain point of their career. There's luck involved. Timing is also important. But I think the more important is really the substance and the network and the whole package that you build around yourself. So I just want to share this case study for you guys to think about. How do you bring the whole package together? Enjoy the present. It's we are all in different phase of our career. So my message is really to enjoy it. I think especially for me, I will evaluate risk and reward in this stage of my career for any future changes. And the most important aspect of my life is my family. So I think that's why we made the decision to move back to US a few years ago. While the Asian market may actually offer a brighter sort of career choices, but again, at a certain stage of life, you start to make choices and understanding what's the most important aspect of your life. Remember, I talked about all in during my career. I just don't think when you reach a certain stage of your life, you can be all in all the time. There's a song that what doesn't kill you make you stronger, but when you're old enough, it may actually kill you. So this is where I feel like okay, I want to slow down and take a breather and attend to my families and see, what's in store for me in my next phase of life. All right, so, I already gave some advices in the presentation. So just want to sum it up, be an optimist. Even the times are tough, times are difficult, but tomorrow is brighter. And invest in yourself. The life is growth. Either you grow or you die. Now I guess you guys figure out what's my favorite book, especially in these couple of years. And the last advice is take care of your finance. Remember, the financial crisis and the hedging story I was talking about. It was never too late or too early to take care of your 401k and your financial portfolio. So always take care of your finances, even in the early part of your career. So, I was talking about evolving a career, it's somewhat boring and mundane at times. So just forget what I said for a moment, right? A quote from my favorite book, Phil Knight said, I tell men and women in their mid-20s not to settle for a job or a profession or even a career. Seek a calling. Even if you don't know what that means, seek it. If you're following your calling, the fatigue will be easier to bear, the disappointment will be few, and the heights will be like nothing you ever felt. So I want to share that with the young folks. And remember, I told you that one of my regrets, as a very disciplined student, was that, I don't think I ever dreamed big when I was young. That was the biggest regret of my life. So seek a higher calling, dream big. So one more thing, I want to share this quote from William Henley with all of you. You guys might want to Google William Henley and to see under what circumstances that he wrote down these words, and it will make it even more powerful. And lastly, this is the perfect translation of William Henley's words. It is quite amazing, how Phil Knight's words about a higher calling is perfectly reflected in the life of the director of NECINA. His nickname is Zhao Zi. He's actually a pharmacist student, but he thought, the thing he was pursuing was so boring, so he quit and followed his passion of making cartoons. So don't believe in fate, believe in yourself. Take on whatever that is in front of you with some passion and intensity. And just like Phil said, the reward would be the high you have never felt before. So I wish you all soon find your fiery flying wheels and spin them to a lot of successes. Good luck.
Thank you so much. It's really inspiring. So now I think we are in the Q&A. Feel free to unmute yourself or just type the question in the chat tag. And so there's one question I get from Claire, and she asked, talking about network development, people always encourage young professionals to develop some mentorship. Any suggestions on what is the best ways to identify a mentor and establish a meaningful mentorship relationship?
Well, I think my advice would be, start with someone in your company, in your organization, because it's quite accessible. You could make lunch appointments and you could have more convenient interaction with that particular person. And don't mind sort of changing mentors, because not all person are good mentors. So, you realize if certain people are reluctant and you're not getting what you need or what you help, and really don't mind, go establish another relationship, right? I think it's just like matchmaking at times. It's not like when you reach out, you get a mentor, then that person is going to be your mentor for the rest of your life. It doesn't work that way. You know, it's just like marriage, and it takes some trying and error. But it's much less serious than marriage, so don't take it too serious, and feel free to go out and reach out and say, you know, I want to kind of get some career advice from you, and you'll figure out after a few lunch or a few drinks, and whether, you know, that person could be long-term mentor in life. So, you know, it works both ways, and you'll find that chemistry. But the best thing is to reach out and try.
Yeah, that's totally like just keep trying and find the one who fit you most perfectly. Yeah. So that's another question from Zizi Zhang, and her question is, how long should we wait for the promotion or the path towards your goals within a company?
Well, I would say it depends. Each company have different sort of rhythm of promotion, if you will. I think if you work for a professional firm like the Big Four or a consulting company, if you're not promoted within 3 years to your next level, you know, that's probably a message you should go look somewhere else. But in corporates, it's a bit different. If you stay on a job for 3 or more years and then you don't feel like you're getting any further development, you should start to look for other opportunities. It could be a progressive opportunity, meaning a higher level of title, right? But also sometimes don't underestimate the power of just making a horizontal or lateral move to expand your industry knowledge and to get into another field. And sometimes it could be very rewarding. And the other thing I want to say is that just understand what title means in each organization, because some company will offer very sort of inflated titles, right? Go for the substance. Don't just go for the title. That's, you know, go back to what I was talking about. Do your research, do your study, and reach out to, you know, whoever understanding that organization, so that you don't get surprised.
That's good. So another question from Claire Mao is, can you share your advice on coping with office policies?
Office politics.
Yes, politics.
I'm not sure that I'm the best person to comment on that. I guess I was actually known a little bit to be on the blunt side in my office environment. Like I said, you know, I was not a salesperson. I like to get to the point. I think I was reviewing the questions sending by email. There's one guy asked about, you know, the C-suite folks usually have a pretty short attention span. Then how do you get their attention? Then I actually found it quite easy to get their attention. Just be very direct. You know, it's. I'm not. I think you guys all solve the math problem in your life, right? And sometimes you spend a long time solving a math problem, and then you realize if you really bring clarity to it, it only takes 3 steps or 3 sentences to explain the whole thing. But you spend a long time going around and around to find those 3 sentences, right? So the C-suite person, they are not interested in your journey. They are interested in the final product. So go straight to the final product. Regarding the office politics, it's the same, right? If you produce a good, solid final product, you should be fine and you should be rewarded. And if you feel like the journey you took is so much effort and people really don't appreciate it within your organization, then it is time for a change, right? I do think, you know, when an organization value you and recognize your contribution, and as time goes by, the reward should follow. If you don't feel like the reward is follow, or people just don't understand the process involved getting to that product, and then probably, you know, you need to change the environment.
Yeah, thank you. So here's the last question to wrap up. So from Connie, and she's asked, for young folks as international students, how do they find the topic as icebreakers, while language and cultural differences seems to be a barrier?
I would say, you know, first thing is don't be shy. You know, I think the one thing I learned is that sometimes, you know, like you listen to other people talk about certain things that you're not sure, then you feel quite timid and you don't want to sort of, you know, sound stupid. But actually, you know, it is okay since you are from a different culture. And I think you should approach it with some sincerity and also with some openness. I think people actually embrace that or value that very much. Let me tell you guys a story about my wife. She went to Notre Dame. For those of you who have been in the unit in US long enough, knowing, you know, that school is famous for American football. So they have this Jesus mirror on the wall next to the stadium, and with hands up, and so they all call it the famous touchdown Jesus, right? So they were doing kind of student tour in the stadium, and then, you know, it was like, oh, here's the touchdown Jesus. My wife is the only one raised her hand and say, what the hell is a touchdown? So people broke out laughing, right? But fine. They actually very nice. They explained to her, you know, what touchdown is about, the rules of the game, and things of that kind of nature. And you know what? And, you know, maybe a week later or whatever, she's walking on campus, and then some fellow American student in the same tour group can easily recognize her. Hey, that's the girl from Asia, don't know about touchdown. And said hi and very friendly to her, right? And sometimes, you know, don't be afraid of your differences, and your differences actually maybe your strengths. I think it's just be sincere and be open about it. And as long as it's not offensive, I think, you know, people actually would like to see some differences in their life.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think we read it up. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And here's this, please scan the code to join NECINA. And we have so many good activities in the past 3 months following up. So thank you guys again, and hope you guys have a good week. Thank you, Mr. Sun.
Very much, Lei. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.